This is the final round of the Marlboro British Formula 3 Championship and the last British race before the rules are changed to outlaw the ground-hugging skirts, which dramatically increase cornering speeds. This year's top man, Johnny Dumfries, British champion with 9 wins in his Team BP Ralt VW and a real chance of unprecedentedly becoming European champion too. Canadian Alan Berg, second in the championship after 7 second places. Carlos Abella, the young Spaniard, vastly improved since he joined the experienced Dick Bennett's managed West Surrey racing team. From Switzerland, Mario Heighton, 4th in the championship. The talented Andrew Gilbert-Scott, one of Britain's really promising new drivers. Ross Cheever, the young American, another bright new star with 3 successive wins. Forceful Yorkshireman Russell Spence, the lap record holder at over 120 miles an hour in his 160 horsepower Ralt. The ever cheerful Johnny Dumfries, ready to try for his 10th win from 17 drives. 20 laps of the 2.9-mile full Grand Prix circuit in excellent conditions. Dumfries in pole position on the right, being squeezed into the pit wall by Alan Berg in an effort to get the racing line for Copse, but Dumfries is having none of it. He forces Berg out again to the left, cuts into the right, and Johnny Dumfries is leading on the first lap at the first corner. It's Berg second in the Acorn Ralt, and somebody is off. It's David Hunt, somebody in the background too. David Hunt in the second Acorn Ralt is off. It looks to me as though he's perfectly all right. The Silverstone incident team quickly on the spot as ever. Rotten luck for David Hunt. He's had an awful season. But on goes the race, and the leader at Stowe, Dumfries from Berg. There's Andrew Gilbert-Scott, 3rd. Dave Scott in 4th position. From Stowe to Club. From Club then up to Abbey, and this whole section is flat out at some 130 miles an hour in these 2-litre 160 horsepower cars. A typical Johnny Dumfries first lap. He's breaking the opposition by really crowding on the pace, and there's a yellow flag waving. There's trouble somewhere on the circuit. It could be David Hunt's crash, but no, we've got news that Ross Cheever has crashed. The young American, the brother of Eddie Cheever, the Grand Prix driver, has crashed. And the yellow flags are being waved, and that means take caution all round the circuit. This is the second lap out of 20. Dumfries leads, Berg second. There's the Scotsman, an absolutely impeccable line, rippling over the concrete corrugations, and the flags waving in the background there. And now he's exiting Club Corner, coming up to the fastest bend on the circuit, Abbey, at some 135 miles an hour, coming up to Woodcote at the end of the second lap. And I can see the red flag is being readied. They're going to stop the race as Johnny Dumfries comes up to Woodcote chicane on the second lap. The red flag is out. Up goes Dumfries' hand to warn everybody behind him. The race is stopped. And it's being stopped because of this. Ross Cheever is being taken to hospital. He's hit a catch fencing pole, it's shattered his helmet, and it's cut his face very badly. He's unconscious, but he looks all right otherwise, and he's very lucky, because look at the state of that Valor Racing Ralt of his. That's the brother of Eddie Cheever, the Grand Prix driver. And now we're going to have a rerun. But it's going to be 15 laps instead of 20 this time. Grid positions as before. In pole position on the right, Dumfries. Let's see what he does this time. Oh, very good. Johnny Dumfries this time is forcing Alan Berg out to the left so that there's no problem over getting the racing line for Copse. There's experience for you. And it's Dumfries, Berg, Gilbert-Scott, Dave Scott, and then Carlos Abella, the Spaniard, and Russell Spence, the Yorkshireman. Round Copse now up to Beckett, 3rd gear, 100 miles an hour, and the rest. Stowe, 5th gear, flat out at 130 miles an hour, and this is another very disheartening Johnny Dumfries' first lap. Disheartening for everybody else, that is, because Dumfries is breaking clear immediately. He's building up a cushion of time between himself and the second place man, Alan Berg, who desperately wants to win his first Formula 3 race this season, and it doesn't look at the moment as though he's going to do it. Berg second, Andrew Gilbert-Scott driving a fine race. Then it's Dave Scott, the ex-Formula 2 driver, in fourth position as they go down to Copse. Here they come, Dumfries. Look at the gap already. Absolutely perfect line. Just rides over the concrete corrugations a bit as he exits the corner. He's extending his lead. Now Dumfries has actually got a big advantage. He's got a special low friction ADA gearbox in his car, and that just makes that little bit of extra difference, allied to his driving skill, to enable him to pull out from the rest. And look how he's doing it. 9 wins behind him already. That is the second place man from Calgary in Canada, Alan Berg. 7 second places this year. And Andrew Gilbert-Scott in the Black Brought in third position is driving magnificently. He has had very few Formula 3 drives this season, since he went up from Formula Ford 1600 last year, and he's in third position amongst the best in the class. Alan Berg through Woodcote chicane. How far behind him is Gilbert-Scott? There's the answer, you can see for yourself. Copse again. Berg, Gilbert-Scott, Dave Scott, Abea and Russell Spence. Now Russell Spence has got a job on his hands. He is third in the championship, could finish second, but in order to do so, he has to get ahead of Alan Berg, who is in second place, and that is a real challenge. Dumfries pulling away all the time. Look at him. Gilbert-Scott hanging on to Alan Berg, and he's got a big problem too, because in these Formula 3 cars, with the skirts which give them colossal ground effects, there's Russell Spence. If you get very close to the car in front, you get so much turbulence that you get understeer on the corners, and it's practically impossible to pass, and that is that man's problem. Number 8, Andrew Gilbert-Scott. Number 1, and rightly so. Johnny Dumfries has already wrapped up the British Championships. That Mario Heighton there down in 7th position, and at Stowe, the 130-mile-an-hour corner, you can see now as he goes into club how far the rest are behind Johnny Dumfries. There is Berg, there is Gilbert-Scott, 4th in the red car is Dave Scott, 5th is Abea, the Spaniard, 6th is Russell Spence, and Spence is actually starting to catch the Spaniard. There's only 2.5 seconds between the 2nd and 6th men. In the Dave Price Ralt VW, Johnny Dumfries, the Volkswagen engine now proving to be faster than the Toyota engine, which has dominated the class for so long. Spence is gaining. Dumfries is maintaining the gap. He is controlling the race from the front, and some of the corners he can probably steal a look and see how far the opposition is behind him. There's Dave Scott in 4th position, and Russell Spence is up into 5th position. Russell Spence has got ahead of Abea, so that's the first place change in the race so far. Russell Spence is charging. Alan Berg, 2nd, ahead of him, Johnny Dumfries, behind him, Gilbert-Scott, Dave Scott, Russell Spence now in 5th position. There's Russell, and Russell has now got Dave Scott in his sights in the red Ralt. Pulling away is Russell, number 3 in the warmer style Ralt, from the Spaniard, Carlos Abea. And look at the gap now between Johnny Dumfries and Alan Berg in 2nd position as Dumfries goes through the chicane. Berg, 2nd. Gilbert-Scott, a magnificent 3rd. 4th position is Dave Scott. 5th behind him. 4th. Russell Spence is going through. Russell Spence has taken 4th position, and in the process, he has shattered his own lap record. 1 minute, 25.3 seconds, a speed of 123.8 miles an hour for the very tough and determined Yorkshireman. Well, he's up into 4th, but he's got to get ahead of Berg if he is to finish 2nd in the championship, and there is Berg. And Andrew Gilbert-Scott will doubtless be watching his front wings, because several times this year he's flouted the car in front of him, tipped up one of his wings, lost ground force and places in the process. He still can't get close enough to Berg to nip out of his slipstream and get past him. And Johnny Dumfries now on his way up from club, absolutely scorching past the tail ender, underneath the bridge, up to Woodcote, as Russell Spence, Dave Scott, Carlos Abella go through in 4th, 5th and 6th places. In 7th and 8th places, it's Mario Heighton and Gary Evans. And now, into the penultimate lap has gone Johnny Dumfries. He's on his last lap but one. He is leading by a full 6 seconds from this battle. 2nd from Canada, Berg. And there, 7th and 8th, Heighton and Gary Evans. Beckett, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Berg, Gilbert-Scott and Russell Spence. Stowe Corner, Dumfries. This is a magnificent, forceful demonstration from Johnny Dumfries, who has, and there he is, had racing tests with the Williams team and the John Player Special Formula 1 Grand Prix teams. He will get a prize of a McLaren test drive for winning the championship, and he could well be into Grand Prix racing next year with a bit of luck. And he's soon going to be starting, there he is, starting his last lap to make it, if he finishes, 10 wins in the series out of 17 races, and he's had 18 pole positions in his European and British racing this year. Seventh and 8th, but there's the leader. He hasn't got far to go now. Johnny Dumfries, Dave Price, Team BP, the Ralt, the VBW have made a magnificent combination. And Berg and Gilbert-Scott and Russell Spence are still together for 2nd, 3rd and 4th places as Dumfries goes through the tail enders now. He's lapping on his last lap. Watch him nip out of the slipstream and go through. He's now just got the Woodcote corner in front of him, has Berg, Gilbert-Scott and Spence almost as one go through his 2nd place. There is Dave Scott, there is Carlos Abella, 5th and 6th. 7th and 8th are Heighton and Gary Evans. Last corner, the winner, Johnny Dumfries has done it. The checkered flag shows him his 10th win of the year. Now, who's going to be 2nd? It's Berg. And in 3rd position, Gilbert-Scott. And look at that, Gary Evans is going to go through and take Mario Heighton, and he does it. Well, a grandstand finish if ever I saw one. And Johnny Dumfries on his victory lap has shown us that if ever there was a potential future British Grand Prix winner, it's him. On the podium.
There's confirmation of a splendid season for Dumfries. Indeed, it would be no surprise at all to see him racing in Grand Prix next season. Ross Cheever, whose name you see there in 5th place incidentally, and who crashed in that particular race, was okay, came out of hospital. He had some superficial cuts and things.